When a man loves a woman.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Win with Heather Havenwood. That was our guest, Daniel. That was awesome. I could not have.
Wait, Heather, did you record that?
I did.
No
I
way.
was recording that. I was about to say 3, 2, 1, but you busted out in song. So, by the way, I'm going to keep that in because it was awesome and you can't
Sure.
that stuff. So I'm going to tell you who Daniel Grefen is. Daniel is the #1
Yeah.
international best-selling author of The Self-Help Addict and host of Can I Pick Your Brain? And of course, an amazing singer, because that was good, which has reached over 190,000 downloads and ranked top 26 podcasts to listen to by CIO magazine. He's appeared on over 50 top-rated podcasts and major publications. Ooh, ooh. And
51 now.
51 now. Exactly. Thank you. 51
That's
now
fine.
as of this moment. Daniel has also been named the top 25 most influential influencer by Influencive. And after realizing the power podcast, because they are amazing, he has launched his 5th child. Love that. Grefen Media Group. Also, recently, he's launched his 2nd podcast. Ta-da! The Daniel Grefen Show.
The Daniel Grefen Show.
The Daniel Grefen Show.
Grefen Show.
Your singing was awesome. I couldn't play in that better. Just
Well, that's all you're going to get from me today. Well, maybe not. Who knows?
What are you kidding me? No. So by the way, you didn't know, I'm sitting here in Austin, Texas. You're in Israel, correct?
Yes.
That's the Power Podcast. I'm talking to someone across the world. We're going to be live. We're sharing this with the world, sharing this with entrepreneurs around the country. So I do business with your company. I do business with your media group and working with some of your clients. I think it's fun. So let's talk about something that, let's talk about your show. You just launched your 2nd podcast. And a lot of people think, well, why would you create another show? Talk about that. Talk about why you did that.
Okay, so this is going to sound a bit cuckoo to some people, but basically, I have this weird thing where I wake up in the morning, okay, and I get flooded with ideas and thoughts, right? It's like when I go to bed, I have all of these thoughts and I have to drown them out because I'm like, shh, it's bedtime now. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Stop thinking already, Daniel. So like finally I fall asleep. But the thing is that those thoughts and ideas, they don't stop. They just accumulate while I sleep. It's like a dam, yeah? And the water is like, it's like when you need to piss in the morning, it's like you piss a lot because it's like you needed to pee the whole night, but you couldn't because you were unconscious. So the same thing with my thoughts and ideas, they just come flooding out, right? So, but here's the thing. A lot of people, when they have thoughts, they just think about them and they have conversations in their head and nobody knows it's happening. With me, I have a slight case of bipolar, which means 2 things. One is when I get really high, like right now I'm like, woohoo, yeah. But then I also have very, very low lows, and we could talk about that as well. But the other thing is I also need to talk my thoughts out, meaning I need to verbally hear myself to what's it called? To, I guess,
work it out. It's like working it out. I mean, I have the same thing. It's like, in a weird way, I have an idea that comes through. Tell me if this is right for you, but I have an idea that comes through, and then all of a sudden, I have to work it out through communication and speak it out, speak it out, and go, is this viable, or am I, how do I speak this in my head? It's my communication styles. Like I work out conflict through voice. I can't do it through text or any of that crap. That's why I have a coach, because I was like, here's the idea, and I flush the idea out through communication.
Yes. But do you ever talk to yourself, Heather? Do you ever go to your bedroom and actually talk to yourself and have a conversation with yourself?
Yes. I mean, absolutely. You kidding me? I'm an entrepreneur. Right. I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'm not alone. Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, yes. I mean, I was diagnosed ADD, and that's fine. But yeah, I definitely talk things out. I definitely get ideas. Okay. And I have a coach, so sometimes I'll talk that out in her space. And the cool thing about a coach for me is that there's no judgment. Not like your sister or your brother or your friend going, that's a stupid idea. You know what I mean? Like she never does like, okay, all right, well, if that's what you want to do, what does that look like? She just kind of like, what do you want to do with that? Do you want to act on that? Do you not want to act on that? There's like a no judgment zone. And I think that's what you're talking about. It's like, you've got to be able to allow yourself to do that.
Yeah. So what I do is I go for a walk in the park. I have this park literally just right around the corner of my house. And I go for this walk and it's about like 10 to 15 minutes. And I just basically talk to myself. Now, thank God someone invented earphones, right? So what I do is I plug in my earphones into my phone. And as I'm talking, people think I'm just talking on the phone. So they don't think I'm talking to myself, which is really neat. So one day I had this brainwave like 2 weeks ago. I'm walking in the park and I'm talking to myself. And I remember thinking to myself, this is pretty good, the stuff I'm coming up with. Like, I wish I could have recorded that. And then I thought, well, why don't I record it? And then I realized, well, hold on, why don't I record it and make it into a podcast show? But then I said to myself, Daniel, who the hell is going to want to listen to you talking to yourself every day? Like, why would they want that? And then another part of my brain said, Daniel, are you kidding me? People will freaking love that. It's like, what does a guy think about in the morning? Like what? And the stuff I talk about usually is really deep. It's not like shallow stuff. Like I talk about taking imperfect action. I talk about being authentic and being real. I talk about my, ups and downs and how my struggles of being an entrepreneur and how I deal with it. Right. I talk about, being grateful, right? When you're in a low, being grateful and just, basically having fun, like enjoying the journey. And so I decided, screw it, let's do it. And I started hitting record and I produced a few episodes and I listened back to them and I thought, wow, this is actually pretty good stuff. And you know what's really interesting, Heather? And I think this is so important for people listening to this. It's not produced professionally at all. My first podcast, which I started 3 years ago, right? Was like professional. Like right now, for those of you listening, Heather and I are basically sitting here with our professional mics. Heather's got, a whole like setup over there, professional looking. This show, the Daniel Geffen Show, is completely the opposite. It's me wearing a pair of headphones, Samsung regular white headphones, plugged into my phone, walking in the park when it's like a little bit windy and stuff. And I'm just talking, literally just, and it's like, I asked myself, I said, but will people want to hear that? Because it's not polished. And I realized that, you know what? They would, because I feel like everybody needs to find the right time and the right resources and everything's got to just fit perfectly together. But nobody really actually cares about that. They really don't. They don't.
They want the stream of consciousness in a way, right? They really want the stream of consciousness. Because if you ever go to a real live seminar, someone's like a teaching seminar, I mean, you might have talking points, of course, behind them in a PowerPoint. But at the end of the day, most of the time, the stuff that they love, you take away from, you're like, that was some good stuff.
Yeah.
Is the person in the front of the room just like freaking out a stream of consciousness about something?
Yes.
Or like a hot seat where the person just gets up and goes, okay, what's your name? What do you do? Let me try to fix it. And they just like stream of consciousness fix it. That's like the juicy stuff, right? So
right.
I'm probably going to create one myself now after this interview. That's it. I'm doing mine.
So you should do it. Like imagine someone gets up on stage, right? And they've got their whole script and they're all scripted and they're all prepared and they have everything. They have all their notes and they're like shaking like a leaf, right? And they're like trying to contain themselves. And imagine you're sitting in the audience, right? So for those of you listening to this right now, imagine you're sitting in the audience and this person suddenly just looks at you and he takes his or her script, a piece of paper, and they rip it up, they throw it on the floor, they come out from behind the podium and they say, do you know what, guys? Screw it. Like I wrote this whole script, I practiced it 100 times, and do you know what? To hell with it. That's not me, right? I don't want to be scripted. I want to talk about who I am and why I do what I do. And I want to get real and I want to be honest with you right now. I want to throw up on this stage. That's how I feel right now. Now, how many of you honestly would be like, oh my God, this is amazing. I love this, right?
It's also like a pattern interrupt, right? We're so used to everything being scripted. We know when we turn on the news. We know when we turn on a TV, the sitcoms, the movies, everything's scripted. We know that subconsciously. So when someone just stops and just rips something up and says, screw it, I'm just going to talk, there's not this polarization that happens because we're so used to being talked to scripted. Even though we don't want to think that, it's true. Everything in front of you is scripted. We know that Facebook, Instagram, all of it is basically post-production. right? Everything's post-production. I mean, I do a lot of raw stuff here on the show, but at the end of the day, it's still post-production, right? So you're saying it's like you're taking that authenticity to another level.
Yes, 100%.
I have to ask you this question. You and I talked in the green room, which I call the raw green room beforehand. You said something so perfect. I was like, oh, we got to talk about that. You said, I've been, you're coming out with your show today. You've been reaching out to some people saying, hey, will you help me promote the show? Or, we like, and how are you kind of thing. You're basically self-promoting yourself, which I love. But you said something brilliant. You said, oh yeah, I've had the haters today. And I just thought to myself, how could anyone hate that? So I wanted to talk about that because I think sometimes entrepreneurs are so more fearful of those 1, 2, 3, 4 haters versus thinking the moment you get a hater is when you've made it, right? You have now officially made it. So can you talk about that? Why in the world would they hate it?
Okay. So if you're going to put yourself out there, right, you've got to realize that there are always going to be 3 groups of people that are going to listen to you or read your book or watch your videos. There's always going to be 3 groups of people. The first group are going to be the people who love you. They absolutely freaking love your style. They love your personality. They love your message, your mission, everything about you. And they follow you everywhere you go. Whether you write a book, whether you launch a podcast, you create videos, they love you. The second group are the people who they don't care. They don't care about you. They're like, nah, who cares? Like, I don't really care for this stuff. And then you've got the third group of people who they hate the living daylights out of you. Like, you just trigger something in them, whether it's the fact that they hate themselves or they're just jealous of you or whatever. They just had a bad day or I don't know. They're just born to pretty much piss everyone off and try to bring everyone down. There's just people like that. And what I say to people is, if you're going to put yourself out there, you've got to recognize one thing. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Damn straight.
You are putting yourself in the kitchen. You need to handle the heat. That's what it takes to put yourself out there. That's what it means to get up on a stage and influence people. You want to be small? That's your choice. It's your life. You want to be a spectator instead of a player? That's your choice. It's your life. But if you want to play big and if you want to impact people, then you're going to have to put your neck out there. The kitchen's going to get hot and you're going to have to take the heat. And my advice is focus 100% on the people who love you. Focus on that group. Talk to them and ignore the other 2 groups. The people who don't care, it doesn't matter. They don't matter to you, right? The people who hate you, ignore them. They don't exist. Focus on the people that love you and support you, and that's it. I sent out an email today, and I also posted on Facebook and social media. And what I essentially said in the post and in the email was that you may not know this about me, but I have a slight case of bipolar, and I basically went into why I started my show. Now, I got a ton of email and a ton of messages from people who said, Daniel, that is so raw. That is so honest. It's so courageous of you and so bold to come out and talk about something that's so sensitive. I really appreciate you, and I've definitely subscribed to your show, and I love what you do, and it's amazing. But then I got about, let's say, 10% of people who came at me going, you can't talk about bipolar. What do you know about bipolar? I've got friends who really have bipolar and it's insensitive to use it as a marketing play. And I'm just like, what? Chill the F out, dude. Like, seriously. And I'll say something else as well, Heather. When I wanted to come up with a name for my show, right, which, by the way, when I recorded the first few episodes, I didn't even know the name of the show yet, which is so important. It's another lesson I want to give over here. For those of you listening, stop trying to come up with the perfect name or the perfect logo or the perfect brochure or the perfect, just get on with it. Just start producing. And no one really cares. Just get with it. So then I reached out to my book and I'm like, okay, so here's the question. Do I use my personal name the Daniel Geffen Show?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I call it something else like, I don't know, Living the Legendary Life or something like that with Daniel Geffen? And I went back and forth. And eventually I came to the decision, Heather, that I'm going to call it the Daniel Geffen Show because I really want to build my brand. I want to build my self-brand and my name. And I posted it on Facebook and I posted it on my social. And I basically said, this is what I'm calling the show. And I had a bunch of people, literally, I kid you not, saying, who do you think you are? You think you're like Tony Robbins or like Oprah Winfrey? Like, who are you? Nobody knows you, Daniel Geffen. Why would you call the show after yourself, you egotistical maniac? Like, why would you?
God.
Yeah, literally, I started getting people literally stepping on my head, like, but angrily, passionately, like, who gives you the right to call the show your name? Who gives you the right? And it was hilarious because I found all of my lovers, all of the people that love what I do, they came in and they backed me up and they were like, you don't listen to them, Daniel. Okay, you use your name. You be proud of your name. You stand up tall. You stand up for your name. You go out there and you be proud of who you are. And I'm just like, yeah. You know?
Isn't that great? I love that. And I was the first song. I did the same thing to you. I actually put out there, Heather, which one I retracted. So I did the retraction thing of that because I went in my head about the brand and the da-da-da-da. So like you've given me so much amazing. What you do when you put your name out there is you're giving other people permission, and you're giving me permission, other people listening, to be able to put their name out there and put their brand out there. It doesn't have to be a thing. You know what I mean? It could really just be who they are, the name of themselves. But the other thing I wanted to kind of add to what you're saying about it's hot in the kitchen. I do a lot of coaching for women. And one of the biggest things I hear is like, well, this is happening. They're getting what I call punch. I call it punching. When you're an entrepreneur, things come at you, right? It's getting punched. And there's no like corporate veil to like throw up or something. Corporate
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just you. And I always tell them, I say, you know what that's like when you are sitting here complaining about that? That is like an NFL player who's paid millions, who looks at the owner of the team and says, I want to play, but I don't want to get hit. Then get off the field, give me back my jersey and the $1 million I just threw in your bank account.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, if you don't want to play football, then if you don't want to get hit, then don't play football. You know what I mean? It's
right.
Entrepreneurship. You're going to get hit. And I'll never forget, my dad called me one time. This is the beginning of all my entrepreneurship. And I was going through some little lawsuit. It was super, super small. But it was the first time I ever dealt with a lawsuit in my life. And he said, welcome to business. This is going to happen again. And if you don't like it, then go get a job. That's what he said to me. He was like, put your big girl pants on and deal with that. If you don't want to deal with it, then go get a big job at a corporation and you never have to deal with that. And I was like, wow. You know? But it's
Go, Dad. Yeah.
So true. I think entrepreneurship, and I just want to kind of move into what you're saying now. First of all, about the bipolar, I think I love the fact that you're speaking about it. It's who you are. It's your cloth. It's just part of who you are. I have ADD. My sister is ADD and dyslexic. It's just, I don't know. It's just like part of the cloth, and people somehow want to it's like having a scar and like not showing you have a scar. You know what I mean? It's like we're all flawed. We're not perfect. Kim Kardashian is not why I look that way, people. You know what I'm saying? Like we are all flawed. You know, and pictures don't really look the way they look like on Instagram after a photo shoot. Yeah. So I think it's great that you're bringing out, this is who I am, and this is what I've done in my life, and this thing, you know, I'm going to call it a scarf for just a conversation. This thing is part of who, it's part of my cloth, and it doesn't stop me. I'm not using it as an excuse. I'm not a victim, I'm a master. It doesn't matter that I have this thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to you either. You're giving other people permission who may use that as an excuse. You know?
100%. Yeah. And I think people are afraid to really show the weaknesses, the dark side. That's what people want. That's what they love. You know, in my book, I started out talking about my dad and my relationship with him and how, you know, he was emotionally cold. Like he didn't know how to love because his father was a Holocaust survivor, and he like, you know, my father basically lost his mother when he was 13. She drowned in a lake. And his father was shot and buried alive and then managed to survive in the Holocaust, which is insane. But my dad was emotionally, he was cold. He didn't know how to love. And
Right.
my mother also grew up in a very, very difficult upbringing. And so, and I talk about those things, and I talk about being bullied in high school, like being called spider face because I had a mole on my face with hair growing out. And most people are afraid to talk about stuff like that because, I don't know, what if people don't accept me, and what if they don't, but that's what makes you you. That's how I am the person I am today, because of all of those things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I am the guy. Yes, I was the nerd in school. I was the guy that nobody wanted to sit next to. I was the guy that would get kicked out of class all the time. I was hung by one of my teachers at one point.
Hung?
Literally.
What do you mean hung?
He hung me. He took me by my collar. I was about 8 years old, maybe, and he took me by my. He was about 6'4", and he lifted me up and he hung me up on a peg on like a nail hanging out on the wall. I was like dangling there, and he just stared at me and laughed at me, and then he walked away, and I was like hanging there for how long? It felt like eternity, but it was probably like 5-10 minutes. But I was literally like, that's the abuse that I took. I was called dumb. I really believed I was stupid and dumb until I would say until my mid-20s, until I got married, had kids, built a couple of companies, and actually realized that, hey, I'm actually pretty smart, and I've got talent. But until that point, I was like working on myself, because all I can hear in my head was, you're dumb, you're nothing, you're stupid.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate to that. Not saying you are. I'm not agreeing with you that you are. I'm saying I can relate to that. I actually, believe it or not, I didn't really talk until I was 7. They threw me in speech therapy. So I was in speech therapy from 7 to 14 because I couldn't really talk. I couldn't say my R's. I barely spoke. They thought I was like a good baby because I was just silent until all of a sudden I was like too much of a
and now you talk for a living, Heather.
Now I talk for a living. Exactly. I mean, yeah, right. It's kind of crazy how that works. I think that what you're talking about in your new show is so profound, is that you're basically talking about the realness, the rawness, the true nature of entrepreneurship, what really happens behind the scenes, how creators really think. I was watching an interview recently, a documentary, not even an interview because he wasn't being interviewed, on Elon Musk of Tesla. And of course, they were showing all of his major, major accomplishments. However, there was a piece in there, and it was pretty small, that they jumped over, about how socially awkward he is, all his different marriages, how, socially awkward in so many different ways he is, how he is just being around him. It's what I call socially awkward. It's just socially awkward in the world of social. But because he's become so successful, that's kind of sometimes overlooked, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, and they even showed him when he was younger, kind of a geeky guy, not really interacting with people. So I think that there is a point where the awkwardness gets smushed to the relativity of the success. However, the point of it is that every single person I know that's truly successful has some kind of what I call rebellion in them, and there's some kind of awkwardness. I cannot tell you how many times I've been in rooms about other entrepreneurs, and I'm looking around, and we're all the dorks. You know what I mean? We're all the people that got like pushed out of high school and looked down upon, and we're all in one room together now, all trying to like talk to each other. So I think it's really interesting that the ones that the rejected sometimes, all the time, are the rebellions, are the ones that dream big and are the most successful. So I love it.
You know what that reminds me of, Heather? And for me, this is like a memory. This is like a moment in my life where I realized that I had made it. And when I say made it, I don't mean money-wise. I'm talking about made it in terms of, this is really what I wanted. So let me give you the story. So basically, I was, like I said, I was the dropout in school, and I had essentially built a very nice sized business, and I outsourced pretty much the whole business to one of my competitors, and I managed to run the company from a hotel room. Like literally, I had my laptop and my phone. I had no staff. I had nothing, just a laptop and phone. And I scaled this company, and ended up pretty much being in a situation where I could semi-retire at 31 years old. And so what I would do is I would go to the park if it was a nice day, and I would work from the park. Like I would just be like, oh, it's a nice day outside. I'm going to go and I'm going to work from my laptop and my phone from the park. And so it was one of those days where I was walking in the park with my laptop in my hand, and suddenly I see a guy who I went to school with, and he was one of those A+ students, the guy who everybody said was going to make it, and he was going to be the one, like, you know. And I was always so jealous of this guy because he was like, you know, so perfect, you know. It's like, right? I was the loser. So this perfect guy from my high school was literally running, like he was like running with his briefcase, sweating, with his jacket and tie and like his whole suit, and he's like running past me in the park. And then he turns around, he stops for a second. He's like, "Hey Daniel, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm working." He's like, I'm like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "Oh, I've got to catch the train. I'm late for work." And he was obviously going to the city to go and do his 9-to-5 prison sentence. And he turns around, he's like, "Well, I don't understand. Where's your office?" I'm like, "Oh, right here." And he did like a double take where he was so, and that face, Heather, that expression on his face was when I knew I made it. I had the last laugh. I'm free. I'm the one that's free. I did it.
Yeah.
Okay. I can be wherever I want, with whoever I want, whenever I want. If I want to take a lunch break at 3 PM, I'll take it at 3 PM. If I want to go on vacation with my wife and my 4 children, whenever I want, I'll do that. I want to take my wife out on a date for the day, I'll go and do that. I want to go to the beach and work from the beach, I'll do that. You are in a prison sentence.
Yeah.
But you were the perfect kid in school and I was the loser. Now who's winning and who's like, you know what I'm saying? So, man, I wish I could have listened to this when I was about 15 years old.
Oh my goodness. You have no idea. Can I share my story like that? I have one of those.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was in drill team, so I was a cute blonde girl, but I was kind of like, this is how your life's supposed to go. You know, you're blonde, you need to be cute and get married and have kids, and like, that's it. And I didn't want that world. So long story short, the day after high school, I left. I was gone. I'm out of here. Left the city, never came back to that area of the world where I grew up. So, and I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't like keep in track with anybody and all that. 20 years reunion, randomly found out through Facebook that they're having a 20-year reunion. I thought, well, I don't know anybody there, but heck it, well, I'll go. I mean, you know, and I show up, and at this point I've already written a book. You know, I hadn't have a podcast yet, but things are going well. I've been in the business for 10 years, 12 years. And there are these 3 girls, you know, like the head of cheerleading, the head of drill team, and like the popular girls, you know, those 3 that never gave me the time of day. And I look, by the way, amazing because I keep myself looking great. I'm healthy. I keep myself like, and I had this like really awesome like leather outfit on. Like, oh, it's amazing. I literally had people pass me, like I could hear and go, "Who's that? I don't remember her." Because during high school, I was like very, I don't know, I was real recluse. I didn't talk a lot. I was actually really recluse. I didn't, believe it or not. People fathom.
Yeah. Who would know?
Yeah, these 3 girls, that one major one named Wendy. She was like the one every guy wanted in the world, you know, kind of thing. I see her, and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, first off, it was Wendy plus 100. And right? And I'm like, whoa! And then like 2 of her friends that I remember, I looked at their faces. They didn't recognize me at all. And then I had one say, "Oh my God, I see you online. Like, you're doing amazing. Do you have kids?" I'm like, "No." Do you have a husband? That's amazing. And they all stayed in the same area, and they all had babies, and they all hung out together and all that. And 2 of them are divorced, all this. And that's fine. Great. You know, whatever. That's all good. Congratulations. And that's fine. Nothing against that. I think it's great. But I just was like, there was this weird moment that was like, you made it. You know? Like,
yep.
You made it. they're going to remember you. And I've had over the years, like over the last couple of years, I've had these random people, like, because I don't connect with them on Facebook. I've had a couple of people message me through Facebook and go, hi, remember me? I'm from high school. Wow, you've done so well. And I'm like, okay, nice to see you. You know, and it's just this little piece, because there are always people that never gave me the time of day in high school. You know what I mean? And I'm just like this kind of like a, wow, I'm okay. You know what I mean? So I know that's like, I guess that's like revenge is sweet, right? At the same time, I think that there is a piece of us. I know for myself, I was kind of told that what I was told was no one expects anything of you other than to have babies. No one expects you to do anything, make any money, or have a career. That's kind of what I was told. You're not supposed to do anything. Just try to get through high school and try to get an MRS degree and have kids, and like just don't do anything else. So I was kind of told different things, like don't be smart. You need to be stupid.
Yeah. It's amazing how all the things that people told me not to do,
I did.
It's because of those things that I did that I was able to get to where I am today. For example, they told me to shut up constantly. They said, Daniel, you got to stop talking. Your mouth is getting you in trouble. Today, my mouth is that's my secret weapon. Right. I could talk. That's what that's what makes me different to a lot of people. I'm able to express myself, and they try to shut me up. Right. They told me, for example, you know, you're too stubborn, right? You're too stubborn. And my stubbornness is what got me an investor. I'll tell you a funny story. You want to hear this one?
Yeah, let's hear a funny story. Pitch investors.
Yeah. So my first company, I had this call center, right? Now, here's the thing is when you start a business, you can't afford staff, right? So you've got to basically wear all the hats. Yes. So you're the salesperson, you're the accountant, you're the bookkeeper, you're the debt collector, you're the customer service rep, right? You're everything, right? So that's what I was doing. And not only that, but you've got no business, so you've got to hustle hard. And this is back when there was no Facebook, there was no social media. And so I had to do old school, which was basically cold calling, which whatever, that's what you had to do. So I went down a list and I just started calling people. And the way it worked with me was that if you don't say no, it's a yes. Right? Unless you tell me, Daniel, go drown yourself in a lake, like, I'm going to call you back tomorrow. Like, literally, I'm going to call you back tomorrow. So I did this. On the 7th call with this guy called Gary, he picked up the phone. He says, hello. I said, hi, it's Daniel Grefen again from Jet Virtual. Daniel! I'm like, yeah. He's like, stop, okay? Let me just stop you right there. I'm like, yes. And he starts lecturing me about how there's a difference between persistence and desperation and harassment, and you got to stop calling me. I told you that I'm thinking about it and I'm interested, but not right now, and da-da-da. And then he says to me, but sign me up, okay? You got me on now, okay? That was hilarious, because I'm just like, okay, great. He just lived 20 minutes and then he signed up. Perfect, I did my job. And I put down the phone. And he sends me the form. Brilliant. That's not the end of the story. An hour later, kid you not, my phone rings and it's Gary again. And I'm thinking, oh no, he's going to cancel, isn't he? He's going to give me another lecture and he's going to cancel. I pick up the phone and he's like, hey Daniel, it's Gary again. I don't know if you know like who I am. Basically, I'm a venture capitalist. Okay. I invest in companies. I recently sold my company for £300 million. I've been thinking about it, and you know, I invest in people, and you are highly, highly investable. I like the way you do things. I like your persistence, and I'd love to meet with you to talk about potentially investing in your company.
Get out!
I'm not kidding. It's a true story. I literally almost dropped the phone. I was like, what the freak? And I'm like this little kid, like I'm like a 23-year-old whippersnapper or whatever, however old I was, like 24, 25. And I was just like, what? A week later, I'm sitting literally opposite this venture capitalist guy, and I'm thinking to myself, geez, this is the same guy who's telling me I'm too persistent. right? And it worked. It paid off. Now, he didn't end up investing because I turned him down because he wanted too much equity. So I ended up turning him down. And I'm really glad I did. But the point is people will tell you, you've got to be quiet. You talk too much. You're too persistent. You're too stubborn. Da, 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 da. And all of those things is what helped me get to where I am today.
It's so true. It's so true. First of all, I love the fact that you were cold calling. I still believe that works today. I'm a big believer of it personally. I think that one of the things that, what people that I listen to nowadays, Grant Cardone, old school Jim Rohn, you got to do everything there is to do to be successful. Not just one thing, not just create a funnel. Like, you've got to be able to pick up the phone and actually have conversations. And it's that persistence is actually going to get you the money. That's persistence going to be able to get you the sales. You can create a funnel all day long, but if you don't get sales in the door, then it doesn't matter.
And you got to be shameless, right? You have to be shameless about it as well.
And I got to give you some credit. You and I have had some great conversations, what I call, off recording in green room and just private conversations. And you tripled my price on something because you had me reframe it in my head. And something that I do, and we both do, we launch people's podcasts. And you said something, Heather, a podcast is an asset. So when you're creating your new show, the Daniel Grefen show, you're creating a new brand asset. It's a brand asset. And so when you said to me, hey, you are helping people build brand assets as you do too, I just went, oh my God, he is so right. This is not just a show. This is an asset in anyone's business. And you've got to be confident in that. And so that's where that confidence comes from, and doubling and tripling your sales. But it also comes with that confidence of picking up the phone, having those conversations, calling someone and calling someone and calling someone to a point where they're giving you money saying, I want to invest in you. Because people do that all the time. They're like, I want to invest in you, not the concept. The concept's great, but I want to invest in you.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what I was thinking about today, Heather? So today I launched the show, and I knew that I needed to get like a ton of subscribers if I want to get to number one in iTunes. And I want to get to number one because who doesn't? Like, why would you not want to get to number one, right? So I literally reached out personally to over 200 people on Facebook Messenger. I literally individually wrote to over 200 people at my breakfast table, like just literally reaching out. And as I was doing that, I was thinking to myself, like, people don't do this. Most people, they don't work hard. They just figure, oh, I'll put out a Facebook post and maybe I'll get some clients. Oh, I'll put $100 in a Facebook ad and maybe I'll get some clients. People are lazy.
They are
lazy AF, right? Lazy. And so here's the cool thing for those of you listening. Like, if you want to be successful in anything, you literally just have to do a little bit more, because most people are lazy and they want quick results. They want it now. They have no patience and they don't want to do the work. Like, I'm literally today going to stay up probably close to 24 hours straight because I want it, because I want it bad, and because I'm going to go out and I'm going to get it. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And you know what? There are going to be people today, because I'm going to hit up at least 1,000 to 2,000 people today, at least. And there are going to be people that are going to come back at me. And I've already had people come back at me going, Daniel, get the F away from me. Like, why are you sending me this? Like, I don't care about, and you know what? Next, I don't care, because I'm looking for those lovers. I'm looking for my fans. I'm looking for the people who today wrote me back saying, Daniel, thank you so much. I love what you're doing, and I will gladly subscribe to your show. I will gladly listen to your show. And those are people I'm reaching out to, and I don't like the rest of, I don't care about the rest of them. I really don't, because who cares? One of the best things someone said to me once, he said, and I never forget this. He said, Daniel, what people think of you has nothing to do with you.
It's so true. It's so true. What people think of you has nothing to do with you. It's so true. And I will say this. I was listening to, I believe it was Grant Cardone. I'll give him credit. He said, the moment you have haters is the moment you've arrived. So his point was, go get some haters. And if you don't have haters, then you haven't arrived. look at anyone big. I'm throwing names out: Jennifer Kardashian, Jennifer Aniston, Kim Kardashian.
You want to go really big?
Trump.
You want to go really big? And I know that this is going to cause a lot of controversy.
Trump.
But I'm sorry, Donald Trump. As much as people might hate him, at the end of the day, here's the thing about Donald Trump. I want to say one thing about him. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Nobody is sitting on the fence about him.
No, and that's so true. That is so true. They love him.
Honestly, I'm telling you one thing. Look at anyone who is super successful at what they do, and I promise you one thing. Typically, their audience or people who know them, there is nobody sitting on the fence. They either love them or they hate them. And here's a little test for you guys. People listening to this, you do not want people that like you. You do not want people that are sitting there going, yeah, she's okay, she's all right. That's the worst thing, because then you've just got a mass of people who are like indifferent. They don't really think about you. They don't care about you. But if you have people who absolutely freaking rave about you, and then you have people who hate you, that is the best position to be in. It is the best position to be in. And look at anyone that you admire today, and you will see, Google their name, and you will see lovers and haters, but you won't see people going, nah, don't really. Oh, President Trump? Nah, I don't know. Don't really have an opinion about him.
Are you kidding? Right. Everyone's got an opinion about Donald Trump, and Absolutely. I do agree with that. I think I was talking to someone today about the news organization, CNN and whatnot, what I call the ones that are anti. And what I was sharing with is like they so much. There's a part of them that so much don't want to focus on him and don't want to cover him, but then he has this way of throwing a tweet or saying something, and it's like, oh, there goes the eyeballs, you know what I mean? And they there's a part of them just wants so much something else to focus on. And as the comedian at the correspondent dinner in Washington said recently, her name I can't remember, but she said basically, love him or hate him, your advertiser dollars are up, and he's making you a lot of money. You know what I mean? No, it's kind of one of these things where you have to realize there is no money. There's no money on what I call being liked. There's zero money in being liked. The money is either loved or hate. I am not a fan of Kim Kardashian. However, I respect her, right? I respect the hell out of her because she's loved and hated. I'm one of the other ones. I'm not a big fan. They say Howard Stern. They say 50%, over 50% of his listeners hate him.
Yes, it's incredible. But and you know what's really interesting, Heather, is when I post something on Facebook, for example, or LinkedIn or wherever, and I get a hater and they start trolling me and start commenting, I'm laughing at them because their post, their comment just boosted my ranking. Like LinkedIn just gave me more love and more eyeballs because of their comment. So I'm just like, comment away, haters, because you're just boosting me up. You're boosting me higher. It's like you're feeding the beast.
Yeah, you're feeding the beast, right? I could, who I get hate from, would believe it or not. I get hate from women. I get hate from women all the time. And they don't like the sexy boss. They don't like this thing. They don't like that thing. It's almost, and I always they want me to go in a particular way. Like they want me to look like a Barbie doll, and they want me to, really be really cute. But they don't want me to have a voice and to say the right truth and say, I think a lot of the women coaches are ridiculous. I think a lot of the pink stuff and having to wear pink all the time and having to look like a Barbie doll is ridiculous. I think that women feel like, you're not supposed to do that. If I'm a woman coach, I must be talking to women as well. And I'm like, no, 60% of my clients are men. Most of my clients are men. So I think that part of this is like, you've got to be willing to be polarizing in many ways. You've got to be willing to be polarizing and get out there and go crazy. So, and I just want to wrap it up here. We only have a few more minutes. So where can people find your new show? Where can they listen to you? Where can they find you? Where can they be with you and love you and hate you?
So all they need to do is they're probably listening to this on their iPhone, on iTunes, most of them, probably I would say 60 to 70% of them. So all you have to do if you're on your iPhone is just go to The Daniel Geffen Show, and you just type it in the search bar, the Daniel Geffen. Geffen is with one F, by the way. The Daniel Geffen Show, and then you'll see me with this kind of weird looking face looking to the left for some reason, and just click subscribe. That'll be huge. You'll be helping me out. And I'd love to be in your earbuds. That sounds a bit weird. I'd love to be in your earbuds. I would love
Hashtag in your earbuds. That could be that could be a thing.
It could be. Actually. It could be a thing. Do I really want to be the wax in your earbuds? I mean, that's that's a graphic.
Oh my God, that's good. Okay, you're awesome. I'm excited for you. I love what you're doing, Daniel. I highly support everyone to go and subscribe and review and like or not like, love and hate. All of it's good too, right? Just go listen. And here's what I would say. Go listen and get a view about it. Love it or hate it, but go create a view about it. You know what I mean? Like actually make a decision and have an opinion about it. I think that's really important too. So go check them out at the Daniel Grefen Show. And that is on iTunes, Google Play as well, correct?
Google Play, Stitcher Radio. So they could, I mean, if you have an Android, if you're one of those, then you can go to Google Play and type in the Daniel Grefen Show and you'll find it there as well.
Awesome. All right, everyone, this is Heather Havenwood. I'm so excited that you were on the call today. Thank you so much, Daniel. Again, this is Heather Havenwood. You can find our show at Google, Stitcher, iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, as well as Roku. Everyone, take care.